oh why do poor white people vote against themselves time and time again?
Analysis found the 15 states that most rely on federal funding for its public schools in 2022 all voted for Trump.
And I voted for President Trump.
I want to get this off my chest this morning with MAGA. Do you know why they're like this? Because they're ignorant.
Hey, I got a message for all y'all black women who are supporting Donald Trump. I said my script wrong. Sorry about that. I don't think there's any black women supporting Donald Trump. To all y'all white women who are supporting Donald Trump. Next time one of those Democrats says to you, give me one reason why you're supporting Donald Trump, I'm going to give you a bunch of answers you can give them. Let's start out with, I support Donald Trump because I believe women should not have the right to vote.
See, we told you that the plantation owner was going to screw you.
My problem is that these people, these MAGA voters, they vote for like billionaires, and there is this worship and idolatry of it, and it makes them feel empowered to vote against their own interests. And it's a really interesting case study.
Guys, welcome back. My name is Robbie Masaga. Today I want us to discuss about why most MAGA voters vote against their own interest. At first glance, it seems like a contradiction. People who struggle with everyday bills, who face challenges with healthcare, wages, and housing often cast their votes for billionaires or leaders who openly prioritize wealthy. On the surface, it doesn't add up. But here's the fascinating part. For many of these voters, the decision isn't about financial gain. It's about something much deeper: worship and idolatry. The admiration of billionaires creates a sense of, connection, almost spiritual in nature. Instead of feeling powerless, they feel strong, proud, and energized. That sense of empowerment is what transforms the act of voting, even when the policies don't serve their, personal needs. The emotional connection makes it feel right. And this paradox of empowerment leading to voting against self-interest is what we are going to unpack today.
I just saw a post explaining MAGA women, and it makes so much sense. We wonder why people vote against their best interest, but this creator said that MAGA women were the pick-me girls. When they were younger, they were pretty, or at least average, and they got a lot of attention from men. And patriarchy does not tend to reward women as they age. Women are worth more to patriarchy when they are young and childbearing, and when they start to see that they are not being favored by this system, they become Karens, and that's how Karens happen. And Karens vote against their best interest because they think they're still being favored by the patriarchy. Jesus Christ. All of that makes so much sense.
I want to get this off my chest this morning with MAGA. Do you know why they're like this? Because they're ignorant. They live in rural America. I have family that live in Kansas and Indiana, and you know what? They're the most uneducated victimhood people that you've ever met in your life. They grow up in these bubbles of white America, and they're told since they're born that you're the greatest, you're the best, freedom, bald eagles, America flags, pew, 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 pew. You are the best, you're the apex predator. Look at the founding fathers. Yeah, they owned slaves. Yeah, that was a little bad. Yeah, only white men had rights. Yeah, black people were three-fifths of a person, but America's great. It was founded on Christian, godly principles. Sure, black people couldn't vote until the 1960s. Sure, women didn't have rights until the 1900s, but it's great. You're the best. Out of all the planets in the universe, this piece of land was given to you by God himself. Jesus Christ has blessed you with this. And what's happening is these people It's part of their DNA. That's all they know. And when they're exposed to something like equality or gay people or trans people or anything that is not a straight white Christian America, it breaks their brains. Because they've been indoctrinated since they were little with this white nationalism. My dad was the same way. That's how he grew up. He used racial slurs all the time. But this is what we're dealing with. So when you confront them with facts, it literally, you're trying to get through decades and decades of ignorance and indoctrination, right? Oh, the truth. They're the only people that know the truth. Them. They're the only ones. January 6th. Oh, that was peaceful. But keying a Tesla, that makes you a domestic terrorist. Pardoning the January 6th, they're patriots. But Colin Kaepernick taking a knee and disrespecting the flag that I've been told to worship like Jesus, he's a son of a bitch.
Oh why do poor white people vote against themselves time and time again? They vote for Trump and the other MAGA politicians only to have every promise broken, prices go up, social supports evaporate. Here's why. First, remember what I talked about recently, the psychological wage of whiteness. That term was coined by W.E. Du Bois to describe poor white folks being paid with social status rather than decent living conditions. They're convinced by the elites that they're better than black folks, better than immigrants, Latinos, LGBTQ folks. They're convinced that being white puts them in the same league as the elites. Of course, the elites know otherwise, but the poor whites buy it because they're grasping at straws. Second, they are convinced that the people they're supposedly better than are the big threat in their lives. Not the rich, not the corporations or the politicians, but immigrants, black folks, welfare queens, LGBTQ, criminals, you know, the usual scapegoats. Third, the elites promise protection to poor white folks. A politician comes along and says, I'll keep those people in their place, or I'll kick them out, or I'll lock them up. Or, more politely, I'll defend your values. They don't say, I'll make your life better. Well, they say it, they just don't mean it.
Now, let's break this down step by step. First, the worship and idolatry. MAGA voters don't just support billionaires casually, they admire them as living symbols of power, freedom, and success. To them, these leaders represent the highest form of American dream. Second, the empowerment. This admiration doesn't make voters feel small, it makes them feel larger. Supporting a billionaire candidate gives them the feeling that they are, sharing in that greatness. It's as though the billionaire's strength becomes their strength. Third, the paradox. Normally, we expect voters to make choices that improve their lives, but the emotional bond is stronger than economic calculation. The worship of billionaires empowers voters so much that they willingly vote for policies that may not benefit them directly. And finally, this case study, this is why observers call it one of the most fascinating examples of modern political behavior, where loyalty and identity outweigh material interests. Now, let's step back and really think about why this happens. In most democracies, we assume that people vote based on political concerns, jobs, wages, healthcare, and financial stability. But this case shows something very direct. It shows us that voting is not just about money, it's about meaning. So, why do MAGA voters find, meaning in supporting billionaires? Reason one, aspiration. Billionaires symbolize success. They are living proof that someone can rise to the top, dominate and win. Supporting them feels like standing alongside victory itself. And in American culture, success is not only admired, it's worshipped. To be near it, even symbolically, makes ordinary voters feel powerful. Reason 2, rebellion. Many MAGA voters feel, ignored, dismissed, or mocked by cultural and political elites. Supporting a billionaire outside, like, Trump, isn't seen as surrendering to wealth. It's seen as defying the establishment. In their eyes, the billionaire becomes a weapon against a system they no longer trust. Reason 3, empowerment. Worship isn't passive. It changes how people feel about themselves. When they vote for billionaires, voters don't see themselves as victims of inequality. Instead, they feel like, participants in a larger story of strength, wealth, and patriotism. That emotional high is more powerful than policy details. This explains the paradox from the outside. It seems irrational. Why would someone with financial struggles support tax cuts for billionaires? But from the inside, the logic is emotional. If the billionaire is strong, they are strong. If the billionaire wins, they win. It's not about the paycheck, it's about the pride. And that is why the speaker in the sources call it really interesting case study, because it shows us that democracy isn't only about rational self-interest. People don't vote like accountants adding up numbers. They vote like humans searching for identity, empowerment, and belonging. If we think historically, this isn't new. Across time, people have often supported rulers, monarchs, or movements that didn't materially help them. What mattered was loyalty, pride, or the sense of being part of something greater. MAGA billionaire worship is simply today's version of that timeless pattern. So when we look at MAGA voters, maybe we shouldn't just ask, why do they vote against their own interest? Instead, we should ask, what does empowerment mean to them? Because these voters, empowerment isn't about wages or healthcare. It's about identity, dignity, and belonging to a powerful movement. And that for them feels more, than money. This is why the phenomenon deserves serious attention. It reshapes how we understand politics in America. It tells us that emotion can empower economics, that worship can outweigh self-interest, and that people often choose symbolic victory over personal gain. And whether you agree with it or not, that reality is shaping the future of democracy. Guys, I don't know whether I'm right. I don't know whether I'm wrong. Please drop a comment below. Let me know. What are your thoughts? Also, remember to subscribe, like, and share as well. And until next time, bye-bye.